Hey, you're listening to The Happiness Agenda. And on this version of The Happiness Agenda, we're going to talk about sales and marketing and comedy. What? You say, what do those have in common, right? Well, I'll start this by saying I have the pleasure of having Jeff Goldberg on my show today. And here he is, as a matter of fact. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing outstanding, Stephen. Thank you so much for having me here today. Happy New Year.
Yeah, this is great. Happy New Year. That's right. We're fairly new into this. So, Jeff, tell us a little bit of history about you. I mean, I met Jeff on LinkedIn, and then we've gotten to know each other, talked a few times. Very entertaining guy. But when I met him, he was in a Sales Pro network. That's what he runs, and he teaches people how to be better. He does corporate training for sales. And then one day he said, I think I'm going to try this thing called comedy. And he's been very successful at it ever since. So anyway, Jeff, tell us your transitions. Like, where did you come from? How did you get here? And all the good stuff.
Sure. Well, if you've ever seen the movie The Jerk, I'll steal from that. I was born a poor black child, you know. Okay, so I'm no Steve Martin. I've been in sales my entire career. Like so many people, I ended up in sales by accident. I was going to Baruch College in New York City and wasn't really applying myself. Got a part-time job a block away to make a little money, and it turned out to be at a furniture store, and I was doing customer service and things like that. And one day, one of the salespeople didn't show up, and we were very busy. And the boss looked at me and said, "You know, I'm doing paperwork." He says, "Go sell some people." I'm like, "I don't know how to sell." And he pulled out a legal pad and a pen and handed it to me. He said, "Follow them around the showroom, smile a lot." He literally went like this: smile a lot, write down what they want, come back and tell me what it is. I'll give you the prices. That's selling. And I also have to tell you, my father, my stepfather, and both grandfathers were career salespeople. None of them ever made a living. And I swore to myself I would never, ever go into sales. But 48 years later, I not only still sell, I train others how to sell. And one of the things I do, as you mentioned, is I do corporate training. I also do one-on-one and group coaching and things like that. But for corporate training, I do full day seminars. So you could be sitting in a room with me and, 40 or 50 or 100 other people for 7-8 hours at a time. And as fascinating as I think I am, I realize it can get a little monotonous after a while listening to me droning on and on. So I've always used humor to keep people awake and involved, because I'm one of those people, naturally funny and, class clown in school. And all my life, people said, you should go into stand-up comedy. Anyways, I was talking to my coach one day, and we were talking about self-sabotage. And this was only a couple of years ago. And I was saying how, sometimes in front of a corporate audience, I'll walk right up to that line, and sometimes I'll dip my toe over it, and I'll get the beckoning finger from human resources later saying, "Did you say this in front of the team today?" And yeah, I did. I know I shouldn't have. It'll never happen again. I was aware of it when I did it. But for me, it's kind of like when the funny's in my head, it almost has to come out. Anyways, I'm talking with my coach about it, and she goes, "Well, why don't you just go do stand-up comedy? Because you can say whatever you want there." And this was 2 years ago. And I said, "Liz, I'm 66 years old. I'm not changing careers now." And she brilliantly said, "Jeff, they do it at night. Go work during the day, be appropriate, and then go say whatever you want at night." Signed up for a class, and 6 weeks later, I was standing in front of 250 people at Governor's in Levittown on Long Island and getting laughs. And I haven't stopped. I haven't stopped yet. It's phenomenal. I adore it.
But now, what's interesting there is Jeff and I share that humor thing. And matter of fact, I've gotten fired from a couple jobs because my humor crossed the line, But it happens, And so when we tried it, but it was interesting to me, Jeff, that you said you went and took a course. Most of us think, well, I'm just going to go out and try and be funny, and we go do the stand-up act, like the open mic night, and see how we fail miserably and get embarrassed, and then we quit. And yet you went and took a course.
Yeah. So most comedy clubs offer some type of a class, usually given by a very experienced comedian. I've taken 2 at this point. And they teach you, well, look, there's a lot of people who think they're funny. And there are a lot of people who are funny, and they're very good at making their friends laugh at a diner. But it's very different when you get on a stage with a bunch of eyes staring at you, when people have paid money to get laughs. And it's a very different thing. And I think there's a lot of people that think you just get up on stage and say whatever you want. If you were the late Robin Williams, yeah, you can get up and say whatever you want because you got that type of brain. But having been in this job business for about a little over 2 years now, nobody's getting up there and winging it. We know pretty much what we're going to say. I mean, I know almost exactly what I'm going to say before I get on the stage. It's also timed out. because a producer, whoever's putting the show together tells you, okay, you got 7 minutes, you got 8 minutes. And like if they say you've got 8 minutes, they're not looking for 7.5 minutes. They're not looking for 8 minutes 5. They want 8 minutes on the dot. So you really have to know what you're going to say and plan it out in advance. And of course, there are moments where the audience says or does something and you'll react to that, but it still is timed out and planned. So in the class, they teach you the importance of the writing, which is the toughest part. When you write, you think everything you write is funny, but with the audience is the ultimate arbiter. They are the judge. And one of the things I love about comedy as opposed to sales, in sales, it can take days, weeks, and sometimes months and even years to close a deal. When you're on a stage doing comedy, you know immediately whether you sold it or not, because people either laugh or they don't. And when people don't laugh, time stretches out. And when they do laugh, it goes like this. And you got to be ready and really aware. Here's something interesting. Well, as a speaking coach, I know you will know this. You have to know about the importance of silence. Silence is your best friend in sales, and it's also your best friend in comedy. And what most new comics don't get is that they're so nervous, and believe me, I was there too. They're nervous and they're going very fast, and the audience starts laughing at a joke, and they're so intent on getting that next joke out that they start while the audience is still laughing. And what happens then is the audience stops laughing immediately because they don't want to miss the next thing. The best thing you can do in sales and in comedy is often just shut up. Let the laughter come. Let the prospect think about what they need to think about, and then move on. But yeah, the class was amazing and tons of fun. And even little things like never be nasty to the servers or the waitresses or waiters, because they're going to get back to the producers, and all they have to say is somebody, that guy said something nasty to me. You're never getting booked again. And they have long memories.
Yeah. And it's funny, like you say, the correlation between sales and the correlation, or speaking, I should say, and the correlation between comedy. You still have to know everything about it. You and I work with people all the time in sales type situations or speaking type situations. And I'll tell somebody, boy, you got to script this out. And they'll go, well, I don't ever script out my sales message. And I go, oh okay. But you got to know the 10 different ways your conversation could go. And they're like, no, you just got to know what to say afterwards. And I go, okay. And no matter what you tell some people, they're like, even though they pay you to coach them, they say, nope, I don't want to do it that way. Isn't that right?
Yes, Steve. Amateurs wing it and professionals plan. If you followed me, and I'm guessing it would be the same if I followed you, but if you followed me on 10 sales calls, after about the third or fourth one, you'd probably go, you're saying the same thing every time. I'm like, yeah, you know why? Because I know what works. I figured out over time what works. And look, when I train salespeople, I don't want them to sound scripted. That's the key. You can't sound scripted, but especially, let's use cold calling for an example. I know most people hate it, and I do too, but it's still one of the most cost-effective and time-efficient ways to fill your calendar with appointments if you don't have enough. I don't like doing it. I love training it, by the way, but I don't like doing it. But there's no way you can possibly get on the phone and wing it and be effective. I help people write a script, but then the key is you've got to rehearse a million times so that it doesn't sound scripted. I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but I used to do a lot of local theater well before I went into comedy, because I can't get enough of people, looking at me on a stage. And in theater, again, I know you know this, but the script is not called the script; it's called the book. And what the director wants you to be is off book as quickly as possible, which means you've memorized your lines and you don't need to carry it around on the stage, your script on the stage anymore. Well, here's the thing. You want to get as off book as quickly as you can, because only when you've memorized what you have to say can you then go, okay, maybe I should be looking up like this, or maybe I need to be scowling, or maybe I need to be laughing, or whatever it is. Maybe I need to walk across the stage. You can't do that until you've memorized your lines. And it's the same thing in sales. Once you've memorized what you're going to say, now you can make it sound like, throw in an or an or a little pause, and make it sound like you're making it up off the top of your head. Like if I gave you my opening on a cold call right now, I could do it in about 4 seconds. It actually takes about 20 seconds, but I could breeze through it. But if I did it like I was really on the phone with someone, it would sound more like, hi, this is Jeff Goldberg from Jeff Goldberg and Associates. Are you familiar with us? Now, I've used those 2 sentences a million times, but hopefully it didn't sound like they were memorable.
That's right. And I think that's a real key, is most people don't understand that they have to know their lines, so to speak, but it can't sound like they know them, right?
Yeah, this is right in line with something that's going on right now. AI is very, very big right now. It actually has been for a while, but the last like year, it's been incredibly popular. And I get a lot of questions from salespeople worried that AI is going to replace them. AI is not going to replace you anytime soon. I do believe that the salesperson that embraces AI is going to succeed much faster and better than somebody who doesn't. But AI still sounds like a script. Like I have a friend, brilliant guy, LinkedIn expert, AI expert. He's developed an app that connects to LinkedIn and will write for you in your voice. And it can be cheerful, it can be positive. It does a bunch of things. It's really cool. But I see all his posts and I know which ones he really wrote and I know which ones he let his app write. You got to be a human because people do business with people. If you're Nike, yeah, you're not buying Nikes because of whoever. Well, you could say, Michael Jordan wore Nike, so that's why I buy them. But you're doing business with Nike. But for most of us, when people hire you, Steve, they're not hiring your company; they're hiring Steve. I used to work for a very well-known sales trainer before I went into my own business. When I worked for him and I was selling his stuff, people weren't buying him; they were buying Jeff and my ability to deliver his work. But people buy people, so you've got to be a human.
I think it's critical that when we talk about sales, that people understand that they really do need to be trained. I don't care how much you're making today. You could probably make a lot more money if you went and attended additional sales opportunities, sales schools, sales training events. I'm putting on an event down here in Sebring in March, and it's all about how to teach a small business how to make a lot more money. And the people are like, "Oh, I'm doing pretty good as it is." And you want to go, well, how good is pretty good? And are you happy with that? But a lot of times that's what they say is, I'm doing all right. It's like everything else. It's like being a speech coach, right? When you're teaching people how to be so good. Teach an attorney, hired in a few years ago to teach a group of attorneys how to be better in front of a group. And they're like, half the attorneys were like, I'm great already, the attitude. And then you say, okay, show me. And then they have this pause or this hidden trait that really makes them look inefficient, which of course takes a jury back. Boom, we're back here, as opposed to being leaned forward. And it's funny how people don't realize how training is so vital to their next step. What do you suggest for people who are already successful salespeople?
Well, look, if they're already successful and making enough money, because look, that's different for everybody. But let's say your goal is $200,000 a year. That's all you need. You're very happy. You don't want to make any more, and you're already doing it. Don't take any training. I can tell you though what made me successful. I do believe that there are certain traits and characteristics that you either have or you don't, and you're not going to learn them. Like you're either friendly or you're not. You're either honest or you're not. You either are motivated or you're not. So I can't teach those, but I can teach anybody how to sell. And to me, it's about if you want to be the best you can, make the most money, impact the most people, then it's going to take studying. What made me great at sales is not just that I was born friendly and funny and all that stuff. And that's true. I did have some natural advantages and I'm articulate and all that, and I'm friendly. But what's made me great at sales was I went to work for a company now extinct called Encyclopedia Britannica. For those of you who are listening to Steve's show, we're too young. They were actual books. And they had an incredible training program. They told you exactly what to say, how to hold your butt. I mean, all that stuff. And I, in my ignorance, and I think I was like 23 or something like that, I said to myself, you know what? I don't know anything. I'm just going to do whatever they tell me to do. And that immediately made me incredibly successful in their organization. In the first month, I was in the top 10 salespeople out of 2,500 across the country, the first month. And within 90 days, I was in the top 3. Only because I did exactly what they told me to do. Exactly. I didn't change a thing. Now, what I realized was sales is a great way to make a lot of money, especially if you don't go to school. And I dropped out of college after 2 years. I wasn't learning anything there, and that's not their fault. It was mine. But I found I was learning more in the real world. And I have, as we Jewish people say, I do all right. But it's because, see these books around here? There's 2 more bookcases, around the corner outside of this office filled with books about sales. Because even though I've been doing it for almost 50 years, and even though I'm so good at sales that people pay me to teach them how to sell, I still read almost every book that comes out. I still go to seminars and listen to other trainers and experts because I don't know everything. Sales can be a job or it can be a career. I chose to see it as a career.
That's really important that people start to understand that even the experts. Matter of fact, I heard I was just listening to Jeff on his own podcast. You have a podcast, right, Jeff?
I do. It's called the Sales Pro
What's
Network.
it called?
The
The
Sales Pro
Sales Pro
Network.
Network is his podcast. I was just listening to him with another person on his podcast, and they were talking about the importance of the coach having a coach. Because when we start to learn, we have to grow into how do we do this? When do we do that? And here's Jeff saying, I'm one of the best in the country at what I do. And I still have the opportunity to learn by reading more books, by attending more stuff by other people. We can still learn every time we do something. Matter of fact, that's my motto whenever I go to talk to somebody. I go, whether you like me or not, whether you appreciate what you have to be here for, because some people hate being in mandatory training. And I say, all I want you to do is walk away with one new idea from this day or this hour, whatever you're there for. Your job is to find one new thing from this conversation that will help you get better. Right, Jeff?
It's interesting you say that, Steve, because I go in the opposite direction. So I'm assuming that, like me, you're going to give a speech, you're going to give a seminar, and you're setting up in the morning first thing. And often for me, I'll be setting up my computer and stuff like that. And one or more people come up and they want to shake my hand. And, I've heard so much about you and I can't wait. I'm really excited about this. And somebody always says this line. I love something like this because if I learned one thing, it was worth it. Read a book, went to a seminar. If I learned one thing, it was worth it. Well, here's my take on it. If you spend more than 5 minutes with me and you only learned one thing, you got ripped off and I shouldn't have gotten paid for doing this because I'm going to pack a lot of information. But yes, I'll agree with this. If you go to a seminar or a workshop and you read a book and you don't get one thing, then something's wrong. Either you went to the wrong seminar, you read the wrong book, or it's most likely it's you. You weren't paying attention.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges. I haven't done corporate training for a little while now, but when I used to do it, a lot of it, like I was in the Midwest, and a lot of it was mandatory. It was required. Like managers who think they're really good managers already, who said, I'm already a good manager. Or I did an engineering group one time who said, man, I'm an engineer. My job is not to babysit the guys who work under me. And so you have to teach them management skills. And they come with an attitude that says, I don't want to learn. I don't want to be here. I have no reason to be here. And of course, it was my job to entertain them, first of all, as you say, Jeff. And once we get entertaining and get more confident with them and they get more comfortable with you, then they're going to open up too. And I think that's really crucial when you talk about learning how to be a professional speaker or a professional comedian, that we learn how to adapt our style to the audience as they present themselves, right?
Yeah, and what you said, I think, is so crucial. I've rarely met an audience that had salespeople in it that had more experience than me, but that's almost besides the point. But I have walked into many a room where everybody's, their arms are crossed, and you can see on their face they're not happy to be there. They're only there because they're forced to be. And what they're typically thinking is, first of all, why did my company spend money on this? Why aren't they paying me more? And this is a day I could be out in the field making money or on the phone making money rather than listening to this guy. Again, very fortunately for me, when I took the job at the sales training company I worked for before my own, they had excellent training on how to be a sales trainer, as well as how to sell sales training. But mostly it was, how do you train salespeople or sales leaders? And part of that was, how do I win those people over in the first 15 minutes? Because when you walk into a room and people know they have to be there all day with you, and the arms are crossed, the skull's on the face, and they're paying attention to their phones, my job is, how do I hook them in within the first 15 minutes? Humor always worked well for me, but there are techniques that I was taught to use. And one of them, I'm assuming that, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it was like, I'm going to introduce myself, but then I let everybody introduce themselves. And if it's too large an audience, I'll pick some people, because the quicker you involve them and let them talk, the more they feel that they're part of it, as opposed to being lectured all day. Because there's nothing I like better than the sound of my own voice. But when I don't let other people speak, they get bored.
Absolutely. And that's really critical too. I've sat through all kinds of stuff over the years of decades of our working for other people. And I can't tell you how many. I was a real estate appraiser for 21 years. I had my own real estate company with employees, and you had to attend this mandatory training, and you'd get these guys who were there to train you all day. They were there 8 hours, and they were the most boring people. And you'd talk to them sometimes, and even my own appraiser friends would go, but how do you make this kind of material interesting? And the answer is always you involve stories, you involve the people, but they are, it's like fill in the blank. This is what you do, fill in the blank. This is what you do, fill in the blank. And you're just like, oh, and everybody's falling asleep and struggling not to fall asleep. And so when you're teaching people, Jeff, when you're teaching people how to be better presenters or better speakers or better salespeople, how do you keep them from being boring?
So first of all, the thing to remember is it's not about me. It's about them. The guys who hired me at the training company used to call me up after a day of training to find out how it went. And what they they had the same line every time. How was the Jeff show today? So I was it's a show. And your job is to engage people because they're not going to learn if you don't engage them. And I had a partner at one point. This guy wanted to go into business together. And for about 3 years, we worked together. Then I wanted to be back on my own. But he was a brilliant speaker. I don't know about you, Steve, but you're a professional speaker. Often, maybe most of the time, when I'm sitting in an audience watching somebody else speak, the thought in my head is, "Oh my God, shoot me. I'd rather kill myself than be here. I'm so much better. Why don't I just take the stage? Because I could have this audience engaged." But before either of us would go on stage when we were together, we used to say the same thing to each other. Don't be effing boring. Don't be effing boring, because the audience is not there to be bored. They're there to learn, whether they're forced to be there and or they want to be there. They want to be engaged. And I've seen tons and tons of presentations where the information was useful, but you wanted to poke your ears out with red hot pokers because the person was boring. Again, I know I'm preaching to the choir. One of the things you absolutely want to avoid as a presenter is death by PowerPoint. You get up there and all you're doing is reading the slides. Well, if all you're doing is reading your slides, you didn't need to be there. Just send the deck and let people read it themselves. They can read it faster anyways. Yeah, I see you nodding your head. Yeah, horrible. Not everybody is cut out to be a professional presenter. And sometimes even many non-professional presenters are called out to give a talk. That's why it's so useful to have a coach like you who teach. I don't teach speaking how to be a better presenter, although I've done a little bit of that, but that's your expertise. And I know all the tools and tricks, and I hesitate to use the word tricks, but there are little things that you can do. Like if you stand there stiffly, you're going to look stupid. Use your arms a little, move around. When I'm on, again, you'll relate. One of the things I hear, even though I'm still considered new at comedy after 2 years, because I'm with guys who've been doing it 20, 30 years. One of the things I hear quite often is, "God, you're so comfortable on stage." Yeah, because I've been on stage for 20 years before I started doing comedy. It takes practice, and anything worth doing is worth doing well, and that means you should study it. That's why I think a coach like you, or self-servingly like me, is so important.
Hey, Jeff, while we got a couple minutes left on the podcast, tell us how they contact you. Where do they go? What can they do to get in touch with you or to learn more from you?
Sure. So I have a Facebook group, which you referred to earlier. It's called the Sales Pro Network. Obviously, it's on Facebook. It's a free group, and you can reach me there. I'm on LinkedIn, Jeff Goldberg. My email is jeff@jgsalespro.com. JG like Jeff Goldberg. JG Sales. Yeah, Jeff at JGSALES.
Spell Goldberg.
Goldberg, Goldberg. It should be on the screen. Jeff Goldberg, Jeff at jgsalespro.com. I don't know if I gave my phone number, but it's 516-314-9037. And I'm incredibly responsive. If anybody has questions, anything I can help them with, it's my pleasure. Look, I get paid for what I do, but I like to give back. And anybody can reach out to me at any time. You got a quick question? I'm not trying to sell you any. Well, of course, I have things to sell people, but I'm happy to help anybody. And I always say this, Steve, I've always got my big boy pants on. If you're calling me 5 times a day, every day, we're going to talk about you paying me for coaching or training or something like that. Incidentally, I have a new offering, which actually starts. I have a new offering that starts next week on Tuesday. I've never done this before, but it's group coaching. I'm trying to make it accessible to more people, because my job is to serve as many people as I can so that I can help them make money, and that helps me make money too. So this is a brand new offering for this year. Group coaching, we're going to meet twice a month on Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern via Zoom. One session each month will be me doing coaching for whoever shows up. And the second session will have a guest coach with me and we'll be doing coaching. It's $1 to join for the first month because I want everybody to, it's kind of like being a drug dealer. Here, try this and see if you like it. And then you're going to buy. So it's a $1 trial for the first month. You get both sessions in the first month. There is no contract, no obligation to stick around. If they want to, they'll continue paying a monthly fee, but that's up to them. And interestingly, Steve, I had somebody call me yesterday who I know for years. Her name is Betsy. She's a recruiter. And she said, I'm really interested in that group coaching thing for myself and for my team, but I'm not in a financial position to pay for it after the first month. So I'm just going to wait until I make some money. And I said, Betsy, please don't do that. There's a reason why I'm doing this for $1. If you come in and you get something out of it, but you can't afford it after the first month, just cancel. And she goes, you wouldn't be upset? I'm like, no. If I was going to be upset about it, I would lock people into a contract. I want people to experience it, and I want to give away as much advice as I can because I know that if you come in and only pay $1 and then cancel after the first month, but you got a lot of value, when you make enough money, you will come back. So again, people can reach me on my Facebook group or on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to tell them how to register or where to go for more information.
Yeah, heck yes, I'm probably going to start that. I mean, that's what a great deal that is. $1 for the first month, and then let's talk about the rest. You broke up a little bit on your phone number. So his phone number is 516-314-9037. That's if you got your pencils now, 516-314-9037, Jeff Goldberg. And Jeff, the reason I have you spell your name is because this also goes to the podcast where they don't get the visual part. So they will have to be hearing Goldberg, Goldberg. And you can find him on LinkedIn. Matter of fact, I highly recommend that you connect on LinkedIn and click the bell so that he becomes one of your favorites and you get to see whenever he posts something. That's how I watched his podcast earlier today, is because I was notified that he was going to be online, and that's what we need to do. Jeff, I appreciate you being on here today. This has been absolutely fabulous. If you folks need to learn more information, everybody needs to learn more information. So if you want to learn more from Jeff or myself, you can obviously know how to reach me, but you can reach Jeff. Jeff, what's your email?
Jeff@jgsalespro.com. And my website is jgsalespro.com.
Great. I appreciate it very much, Jeff. And thanks for being on. And man, I'll put this together, probably be online in the next 2 weeks. So I'll give you a holler.
Thanks so much for having me, and have a happy and a healthy and a prosperous New Year, Steve.
Yeah, prosperous. We like that. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Talk to you soon.